The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any building humans had ever seen. Its walls were carved from black stone that shimmered faintly with stars, as though the galaxy itself had been captured within the stone. Delegates from dozens of worlds sat in high rows, their eyes fixed on the center stage where new arrivals were expected. Rian sat quietly in the human section, his heart steady but his mind restless. He was not a great warrior, nor a commander, nor even a famous diplomat. He was simply an envoy, chosen because of his patience and his ability to listen when others only wanted to argue. Still, he knew that today was not ordinary. Something was about to happen, something that would echo across worlds. The hall grew silent. The air itself seemed to tremble. Then the doors opened. From the shadowed entrance walked a tall figure draped in silver-blue cloth that moved like flowing water. Her steps were firm, her chin raised high, her eyes, bright as polished stone, swept across the crowd without hesitation. She was Princess Siren, heir to the throne of the Kale Dominion, one of the most powerful warrior empires in known space. Whispers broke through the silence. Some alien delegates bowed their heads respectfully, others lowered their eyes with unease. Siren's people were known for pride and strength. They did not kneel. They did not beg. They demanded. Rian's gaze followed her as she strode to the center platform. Though she was young, no older than Rian himself, she carried herself with the weight of ages. There was no uncertainty in her movements, no fear in her steps. The council speaker, a tall being of crystalline form, spoke in a calm tone. Princess Siren of the Kale Dominion, you honor us with your presence. What message do you bring to the council? But Siren did not answer the speaker. Her eyes had already fixed on the human section, as though she had come here for one purpose. Alone, she lifted her hand, pointing straight at Rian. You, she said, her voice echoing across the hall. It was strong, sharp, yet clear, and every word carried a weight that silenced even the most restless delegates. Human, stand. Rian froze. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. His fellow humans shifted in confusion, some whispering his name. Slowly, with no other choice, Rian stood. Siren's gaze did not soften. She took one step forward, her long robe sweeping across the polished floor. Then, in front of the entire council, she spoke words that shocked everyone. Touch me, human. The hall erupted. Some delegates shouted in disbelief. Others muttered curses in their own tongues. To touch a royal heir of the Kale was unthinkable. In their culture, touching royalty without permission was punishable by death. And yet here was the princess herself, not asking politely, but demanding it before all. The speaker raised its crystalline arms. Princess Siren, such words break protocol. Explain this demand. But Siren did not explain. Her eyes remained fixed on Rian. If this human dares not touch me, then his people are not worthy of my time. If he dares, then perhaps there is courage among his kind. Rian's mouth felt dry. His legs felt heavy, yet deep inside, he knew he could not back down. If he refused, humanity would appear weak before the greatest powers in the galaxy. And if he accepted, he might be risking his life. He stepped forward. The air seemed to thicken with every step. The Kale guards tensed, their armored hands gripping their weapons. But Siren raised her hand slightly, and they obeyed. Rian stopped only a breath away from her. She stood tall, her eyes never blinking, her expression unreadable. Slowly, carefully, he raised his hand. For one brief moment, silence ruled the hall. Then his hand touched her arm. A shock ran through him, not pain, but a flood of visions. Images of burning skies, of warriors raising banners, of a people torn between pride and despair. He saw Siren herself, younger, standing alone on a battlefield, her face covered in ash and tears. He felt the weight she carried, the burden of an empire that demanded strength without mercy. The vision ended as quickly as it began. Rian pulled his hand back, breath unsteady. The council was frozen in disbelief. None dared speak. Siren's lips curved not into a smile, but into something sharper, satisfaction. This one, she said, her voice cutting through the silence, did not tremble. He did not hide. He dared. She turned toward the speaker, her silver-blue robe flowing behind her. The humans will not be ignored. Their courage has been proven before me, and without another word, she walked away, leaving the entire council stunned and leaving Rian standing alone, his heart pounding. With a truth he did not yet understand, his life had just been bound to hers. The council chamber had never been so restless. After Princess Siren's dramatic declaration, the delegates whispered, argued, and cast sharp glances toward the humans. Some alien envoys shook their heads in disapproval. Others stared at Rian with suspicion, as if he had already broken a sacred rule. Rian remained standing, still feeling the weight of her words echoing in his chest. He could not explain the strange vision he had seen when he touched her, nor did he understand why the princess had chosen him of all people. The council speaker finally raised its crystalline arms again. Its voice rang like soft bells. Princess Siren, you have shaken the order of this council. We require clarity. Why did you demand such a gesture from a human envoy? Siren stood tall, her silver-blue robe shimmering faintly under the light. She did not lower her head, nor did she hide her intent. Her voice rang out, strong and sharp. Because the Kale people honor courage above all things, words mean little. Speeches mean less. To touch one of royal blood without fear is to prove strength. This human has shown such strength. The hall grew silent at her explanation. The Kale were known for rituals of bravery, but to bring one into the council chamber itself was unheard of. One delegate, a scaled alien with golden eyes, rose from his seat. This is dangerous. The Kale cannot simply crown humans with honor through such tricks. The council does not accept, but Siren's voice cut him off. The council will accept what I declare. I am heir to the Kale Dominion, and my words are not games. Her defiance silenced even her critics. She then turned her gaze back to Rian, as if no one else in the hall mattered. You, human, she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. What is your name? Rian swallowed, his voice steady despite the tension. My name is Rian. Siren's eyes narrowed, studying him as though measuring something hidden. Then she spoke again, with words that carried weight like iron. Rian of Earth, from this day, you are bound to my trial. You will walk beside me until it is complete. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the humans in the delegation leaned forward in shock. Bound to her. What did that mean? The speaker's crystal body glowed faintly. Princess Siren, binding an envoy to your personal trial is against council law. Such actions as Siren raised her hand. Then let the council change its law. My people do not bend to old rules. We bend rules to strength. Her words struck like a blade. She turned her back to the speaker and began walking toward the exit. Her guards followed, their armor gleaming, but not before they gave Rian a sharp, unblinking stare. Rian stood frozen, unsure what had just happened. Only when a fellow human envoy whispered in his ear did he move. Rian, follow her. If you stay, you shame us. If you go, you carry all of humanity's name. His chest tightened. He felt no desire to be a symbol, no plan to carry the weight of worlds. Yet in that moment, he realized he had no choice. The Kale Princess had chosen him, and to refuse her demand was to brand his people as cowards. Taking a deep breath, Rian stepped away from the human section and followed the princess out of the hall. The corridors of the council station were vast and filled with alien guards, messengers, and envoys. Yet everywhere Rian walked, eyes followed him. Some were curious, others were hostile. By the time he reached the private chambers reserved for the Kale, his heart pounded with unease. Two armored guards blocked the doorway. Their spears glowed faintly with energy, and their expressions were as hard as stone. But when Siren appeared, she gave them only a single glance. They moved aside without a word. She entered the chamber, and Rian followed cautiously. Inside, the room was decorated with banners of silver and crimson, each one painted with the crest of the Kale Dominion, a soaring wing and a blazing sun. Siren turned to face him. For the first time, her voice was softer, though no less commanding. You wonder why I chose you. Rian met her gaze, steady despite his confusion. Yes, I am only a small envoy. There are many stronger, wiser, and greater than me. Why me? Siren's eyes held a strange glint. Because you did not hesitate. I demanded, and you answered. Many would have faltered. Many would have feared. But you did not. That is the mark of courage my people respect. Rian frowned. Courage. Or foolishness. For the first time, Siren allowed the smallest of smiles to touch her lips. Often, they are the same. The silence between them stretched, filled with unspoken tension. At last, Siren stepped closer, her presence strong and overwhelming. She spoke with quiet certainty. Understand this, human Rian. From this moment, you are no longer only an envoy. You are bound to my trial. And my trial will shape the future of my people. Refuse me. And you will shame not only yourself but your entire kind. Accept me. And you will walk into dangers you cannot yet imagine. Rian's heart pounded, but his voice came firm. I did not ask for this. But if my choice carries the weight of my people, then I cannot walk away. Siren's eyes gleamed. She raised her hand once more, but not in demand this time in recognition. Then it is decided. The council has witnessed it. You and I are bound, and together we will face what is coming. Outside the chamber walls, whispers spread across the station like wildfire. Some called it madness, others called it destiny. But deep in his chest, Rian felt the truth his life was no longer his own. The next day, the council station buzzed with whispers. News of Princess Siren's demand had spread through every hall and chamber. Some said the Kale heir had lost her mind. Others believed it was part of a larger plan only her people could understand, whatever the truth. One name was now spoken across the station with unease, Rian of Earth. Rian himself felt the weight of those whispers. Every step he took through the corridors was followed by stares, curious, suspicious, even hostile. He had not asked for this attention, yet now he carried it wherever he went. Humanity had long been seen as the newcomers of the stars, too small and too weak to shape the destiny of great empires. And now, because of Siren's command, he stood in the center of all eyes. When he returned to the Kale chambers, the guards did not stop him. They bowed their heads slightly as he passed, acknowledging the bond their princess had declared. That alone was strange enough. Rian had never been bowed to in his life. Inside, Siren waited. She stood before a great window overlooking the stars, her silver-blue robe trailing across the polished floor. She did not turn when he entered. Instead, her voice carried across the chamber, calm but sharp. Do you know what it means to be bound to me, human? Rian's answer was honest. No, and I think that is what troubles me. At last, Siren turned. Her eyes were steady, unreadable. Then listen well. The bond I declared is not a game. Among my people, when a trial is set, it must be witnessed by outsiders. You are that witness. More than that, you are now part of it. If you falter, my trial falters. If you show weakness, so do I. Our fates are tied. Rian's brow furrowed. And what is this trial? Siren did not answer immediately. Instead, she walked closer, her steps firm. When she stopped before him, her gaze pierced his like a blade. My trial is to prove I am worthy of the throne. The rebellion that stirs on my world will test me. Enemies wait in shadows, ready to strike, and I must show all who doubt me that I carry the strength of a true heir. Rian let her words sink in. The thought of being pulled into Kale politics, rebellions, and thrones felt absurd. He was only a small envoy, not a warrior, not a leader. Yet he could not escape the truth her command had already tied his fate to hers. Why me? He asked. Again, softer this time, Siren's expression did not change. Because when I demanded, you obeyed without fear. That is enough. Rian thought back to the vision he had seen when his hand touched her arm, the burning skies. The sorrow, the weight of an empire. That moment had not felt like obedience. It had felt like stepping into something vast and dangerous, perhaps. That was why she had chosen him. Before he could speak further, a sound echoed outside the chamber, the sharp clash of metal against stone. The guards shouted. Siren moved instantly, her eyes narrowing. Stay behind me, she ordered. The chamber. Doors burst open. 3 figures rushed inside, their armor dark and their weapons glowing. They were not Kale guards, these were intruders, rebels. One raised his blade toward Siren. The throne will fall, princess, and so will you? Rion's body froze, but Siren did not. She moved with speed like lightning, drawing a blade from her side and meeting the attacker head-on. Sparks flew as metal clashed. The second intruder swung, but she twisted, her robe sweeping as her blade cut through the air. In moments, two of the rebels lay defeated. Their weapons shattered. The third, however, turned his attention to Rion. Rion's heart pounded. He had no weapon, no training for combat, but as the rebel lunged, Rion reacted on instinct. He grabbed a banner pole from the wall and swung with all his strength. The strike did not kill, but it knocked the weapon from the rebel's grip. Siren was there in an instant, disarming and throwing the intruder to the ground. Silence filled the chamber. The guards rushed inside, too late, their faces pale with shame. Siren stood over the fallen rebels, her chest rising and falling with steady breath. Then she turned to Rion. "You fought," she said simply. Rion held the broken banner pole in his hands, his arms shaking from the force of what he had done. "I survived," he replied. Siren studied him for a long moment, then gave a single nod. "Survival is strength. You did not hide. You faced danger at my side. That is enough." Her words struck him deeply. He had not been brave. He had only acted because he could not think of anything else. And yet, in her eyes, that was courage. The guards carried away the defeated rebels. Siren sheathed her blade and stepped closer. To Rion, "Now you see why I bound you to me. My enemies will not stop. My trial has already begun. And so has yours." Rion met her gaze, his chest still heavy with fear, but also something else, a spark of determination. He had been chosen, against his will, but now he realized there was no turning back. Whatever her trial demanded, it demanded him as well. The attack on Princess Siren's chamber sent ripples across the council station. Whispers ran like fire through its endless corridors. Rebels of the Kale had dared to strike even here, in the heart of neutral ground. Some envoys demanded stronger security. Others feared the rebellion was spreading faster than expected. But one truth grew clear to everyone. The Kale princess was no longer safe, and neither was the human bound to her trial. Rion felt the weight of that truth as he sat across from Siren in her chamber. Guards stood outside, their weapons sharp, their eyes restless. Inside, the silence was heavy. Siren polished her blade with steady hands, each motion calm and precise, as though the attack had been nothing more than a test. Finally, Rion broke the silence. "They came for you," he said quietly, "even here. That means your enemies are not afraid of the council." Siren looked up. Her eyes held no fear, only focus. "They fear nothing. That is why they are dangerous. And that is why I must face them before they grow stronger." Rion leaned forward. "Then we have to warn the council. Ask for help." But Siren's voice cut him off, sharp as steel. "The council will not help. They debate, they whisper, they hide behind rules. But my throne cannot wait for their permission. I must return to my world. The rebellion burns there, and I must put it out with my own hands." Rion stared at her. "And me?" Her gaze locked onto his, firm and unyielding. "You are bound to me. Where I go, you go. That is the law I have declared, and you will not refuse." Rion felt his chest tighten. He had never stepped onto the soil of another world outside safe colonies and stations. The idea of walking into the heart of rebellion, among warriors who saw humans as weak, filled him with unease. But he remembered her words from before, "If you falter, my trial falters." He nodded slowly. "Then I will go." A spark lit in her eyes, brief but unmistakable. Approval. The next day, they departed the council station aboard Siren's vessel, the Veil's Wing. The ship was unlike anything Rion had seen. Sleek, black metal curved like the wings of a predator, its engines pulsing with quiet power. Inside, every corridor was guarded, every chamber decorated with banners of silver and crimson. The crew eyed Rion with suspicion. Some glared openly, others muttered in low voices as he passed. To them, he was an outsider, a weak link brought into their princess's trial. Yet none dared challenge him directly, for Siren's command was law. During the journey, Siren kept herself apart, speaking little except to give orders. Rian spent most of his time observing, listening, trying to understand the ways of the Kale. He saw how they trained even in the narrow halls, practicing with blades until sweat dripped from their brows. He saw how they spoke in short, sharp phrases, wasting no words on politeness. And he saw how they looked at Siren not only with loyalty, but with fear, as if her very presence demanded their respect. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly outside the viewing window, Siren joined Rian. She stood tall, her hands clasped behind her back. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Rian broke the silence. They don't trust me. Some of them would rather see me thrown out an airlock. Siren's lips curved faintly, though not quite into a smile. Of course, you are human. You are not Kale. To them, you are weakness, Rian frowned. And to you? Her gaze lingered on the stars. When she answered, her voice was quiet but firm. To me, you are untested, but you will be tested soon enough. Before Rian could reply, alarms blared across the ship. Red light washed through the corridors. The voice of a guard echoed through the speakers. Enemy ships approaching. Rebel craft on intercept course. Siren's hand went to her blade by instinct, though it would be of little use against ships in space. She turned sharply to Rian. Come, you will see what it means to fly under my command. They rushed to the command deck. Screens lit up with glowing symbols, 5 rebel ships closing in fast. The crew scrambled into positions, their hands flying across controls. Siren took the command chair, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Shields to full. Weapons ready. Show them Kale steel. The ship shook as the first enemy blast struck the shields. Sparks danced across the consoles. The crew shouted updates, their voices sharp but steady. Rian stood near Siren, gripping the rail to steady himself. He had no place among warriors, no skill with weapons or commands. Yet as the ship trembled under fire, he could not stay silent. Their pattern, he said suddenly, look at it, 3 ships forward to hanging back. They're drawing your fire to the front while the others try to circle behind. The crew glanced at him in surprise, but Siren's eyes narrowed. She studied the display, then gave a sharp order. Redirect weapons, strike the rear ships before they flank us. The Kale gunners obeyed. The ship turned sharply, engines roaring. Blasts fired, striking the rear rebel ships before they could complete their maneuver. One exploded in a burst of fire. The other spun away. Crippled, the crew erupted in shouts of triumph, their earlier suspicion of Rian momentarily forgotten. Siren looked at him, her expression unreadable. You see what others do not, she said. Perhaps you are more than I thought. Rian's chest tightened with a mix of pride and unease. He had only spoken from instinct, from watching the pattern unfold. But in that moment, he realized something. His role was not to fight like the Kale, but to see what they did not. The battle ended soon after, the remaining rebels retreating into the void. The Vela's wing continued its journey, scarred but unbroken. As silence returned to the ship, Siren stood once more, her voice carrying across the deck. This is only the beginning. The rebellion will not stop, but neither will we. Her gaze turned to Rian, and for the first time, there was no cold judgment in her eyes, only recognition. You fought at my side in council. You fought with me here. Soon, you will fight on my world. And there, your true trial begins. The Vela's wing cut through the stars until the planet of the Kale Dominion filled the view. It was a world of fire and stone, with vast continents of mountains, deserts, and seas that shimmered like molten glass under the sun. Great fortresses rose across the land, their towers sharp like blades. For Rian, the sight was overwhelming. Earth's cities were nothing like this. Kale structures seemed built not for comfort, but for power. As though every wall and tower was a weapon, Siren stood at the command deck, her eyes fixed on her home. Her voice was steady, but a fire burned beneath it. My people wait, some in loyalty, some in rebellion. All will watch what I do next. The ship descended into the capital, a city carved into black cliffs that overlooked a roaring sea. The landing platform was crowded with soldiers, banners, and citizens who had come to witness the return of their princess. When Siren stepped out, the crowd roared not in joy, but in a mix of cheers and cries of defiance. Some shouted her name in honor, others spat words of rebellion. Rian walked beside her, feeling every eye upon him. To these people, he was nothing but a strange outsider walking beside their heir. The Kale governor, an older warrior with scars across his face, stepped forward and bowed. Princess Siren, the Council of Generals waits for you inside. They demand to know how you will answer the rebellion. Siren nodded once. Then let them demand. I will give them my answer. The council hall was built from stone and steel, its walls hung with banners of past victories. Round a circular table sat 12 generals, each armored, each carrying the weight of decades in battle. Their eyes were sharp, their voices even sharper when they saw Rian enter with Siren. One general slammed his fist on the table. Why is this human here? This is a council of Kale, not a gathering for outsiders. Siren's voice cut through the tension. He is bound to my trial. Where I go, he goes. His courage has been tested, and I have chosen him. Another general sneered. A single act of touching your arm. That is no trial. He is weak. Before Rian could speak, Siren's eyes flashed with steel. He stood beside me when rebels dared to strike in the heart of the council station. He stood beside me when rebel ships attacked us in space. Weakness does not stand, it falls. He stands. The generals fell into silence, though some still looked unconvinced. Finally, the governor leaned forward. Princess, the rebellion spreads across the southern provinces. Villages burn, soldiers desert. If we do not act soon, the flames will consume half the dominion. The question is not whether we fight, but how. The table erupted into argument. Some demanded total war, a swift strike to crush all who opposed them. Others warned that such brutality would only fuel more rebellion. Rian listened quietly, his mind racing. The Kale way was always force, always battle. But he remembered what Siren had told him before the trial was to prove she was worthy of the throne. Worthiness, he thought, might mean more than strength of arms. When the generals finally paused, Rian spoke, his voice steady. Strength alone will not end this rebellion. If you strike with fire, the rebels will return with more fire. If you crush them, their children will rise again. The only way to end this is to give them something worth living for, not dying for. The generals glared at him. One spat on the floor. A human speaks of our people's blood as if he understands it. But Siren's eyes narrowed. Thoughtfully, go on, Rian. He nodded. You must fight. Yes, you must defend your people. But you must also show the rebels that your rule will bring more than endless war. Show them hope. Offer them a reason to lay down their weapons. The hall fell. Silent, the generals shifted uncomfortably, unused to such words. But Siren did not look away from Rian. You speak of mercy to a people born for war, she said. I speak of survival, Rian replied. Mercy is not weakness. It is a strength your enemies will not expect. If you show both power and mercy, they cannot call you unworthy. For a long moment, Siren said nothing. Then, slowly, she turned to the generals. You want me to prove my strength? I will. I will march to the southern provinces myself. I will face the rebels with blade in hand. But I will also show them that the throne of Kale does not only bring fire. It brings justice. It brings future. That will be my trial. The governor bowed his head. The generals, though some muttered, could not challenge her command. The room echoed with her decision. Later that night, Rian stood with Siren on the balcony of the fortress. The city stretched below them, fires flickering in the streets as unrest simmered. You changed my counsel today, Siren said softly, her eyes on the horizon. They listened to words of mercy because you spoke them. That is not a small thing, Rian shook his head. They listened because you allowed them to. You are the one they follow. Siren looked at him then, her gaze steady, her expression unreadable. Perhaps, but remember this, Rian, your voice is no longer small. It carries weight. Do not forget it. The sea roared against the cliffs below, as though echoing her words. And in that moment, Rian realized the truth. His role was no longer to observe. He was part of her trial, part of her choice, and part of her destiny. The march to the southern provinces began at dawn. From the high fortress, Princess Siren rode at the front of her soldiers, her banner of silver and crimson waving in the wind. Behind her, thousands of armored Kale warriors followed, their blades gleaming, their voices chanting songs of war. The sound rolled like thunder across the land. Beside her walked Rian, armored lightly but carrying no weapon beyond a short blade he barely knew how to use. He felt small among the towering Kale warriors, yet Siren had made it clear he would march at her side, not behind. The road stretched for days through mountains and ash-colored plains. At every village they passed, people gathered to watch. Some bowed in respect, others shouted curses, their faces twisted with anger. The rebellion had already touched many hearts. On the fourth day, scouts returned with grim news. Rebel forces gathered near the canyon, one reported. Thousands strong. They wait to strike. The generals muttered, eager for battle. Siren listened quietly, then raised her hand. Prepare the army. We meet them tomorrow. That night, as campfires flickered across the dark plain, Rian sat with Siren in her command tent. The map between them showed the canyon, narrow and treacherous. They will try to trap us, Siren said, tracing the lines with her finger. They know these lands better than most. If we rush in blindly, we fall. Rian studied the map, his brow furrowed. Then don't rush. Let them believe you will, but hold back. Make them come to you. Siren's eyes lifted to his. You speak strategy, I speak common sense, Rian said with a small shrug. Sometimes patience wins more than strength. For a moment, Siren was silent. Then, slowly, she nodded. Patience. Very well. Morning came, and the Kale army faced the rebels across the canyon plain. The rebel force was vast, banners of black and red whipping in the wind. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Korn, rode at the front, his voice echoing across the battlefield. Siren, you claim the throne, but the throne is dead. The Kale are tired of chains. Today we break them. The rebels roared in answer, their weapons raised high. Siren raised her blade, its silver edge catching the sun. Her soldiers answered with a thunderous cry. But when the generals urged her to give the signal to charge, Siren's hand remained still. Wait, she commanded. The Kale army held their line, shields firm, weapons ready. Across the field, the rebels grew restless. Korn snarled and pointed his weapon forward. Attack! The rebel waves surged. They thundered across the plain, their war cries shaking the air. The Kale soldiers braced, and in the final moment, Siren's voice rang out. Now! The Kale line moved like a wall of iron, spears lowered, shields locked, and the rebels crashed against them in a storm of steel. The battlefield erupted into chaos shouts, clashes, the ringing of blades. Rian stood close to Siren, his heart hammering, though he swung his short blade clumsily when rebels broke through. It was not his strength that mattered, it was his eyes. Left flank, he shouted, seeing a rebel unit trying to circle around. Siren repeated his command, and her generals moved to block the threat, again and again. Rian pointed out gaps, movements, dangers the Kale had missed. Each time, Siren trusted his voice. And each time, their line held firm. The battle raged for hours, until the dust choked the air and the ground shook with footsteps and cries. At last, Siren spotted Korn at the center of the rebel force. She raised her blade high. With me, she roared, charging through the chaos. Rian followed, his lungs burning, his legs heavy. Together with her guards, they cut a path through the rebels until Siren stood face to face with the scarred leader. Korn sneered, You are no heir. You are a shadow clinging to a dead throne. Siren's eyes burned. I am Kale, and I do not cling. I lead. Their blades clashed with the sound of thunder. Sparks flew as steel met steel. Korn fought with brute strength, each strike heavy enough to break shields. Siren fought with precision, every movement sharp, every counter perfect. Rian could only watch, struggling to fend off rebels who rushed toward them. His arms ached. His blade felt heavy, but he refused to run. He planted his feet and fought, clumsy but determined, until Kale's soldiers pushed in to cover him. At last, with one swift strike, Siren disarmed Corrin. Her blade rested at his throat. The rebels froze, silence falling over the battlefield. Siren's voice rang clear. Corrin, your rebellion ends here. I could take your life, but I will not. Instead, I offer you this choice: lay down your weapon, and I will grant your people a place in the new Kale Dominion. Continue to fight, and your people will suffer. For your pride. The rebels murmured, uncertain. Corrin's chest heaved, his pride warring with his fear. At last, he dropped his blade. The battlefield erupted in cries not of war, but of surrender. One by one, the rebels lowered their weapons. Siren stood tall, her blade lowered but her gaze unbroken. This is the strength of the Kale, not only in war, but in mercy. That night, the Kale soldiers celebrated victory. Fires lit the plains, songs of triumph filled the air. But in Siren's tent, she sat quietly, her blade resting beside her. Rian entered, exhaustion on his face but determination in his eyes. You won, he said softly. Siren looked at him. No, we won. You saw what I could not. You gave me patience when I wanted fire, and you gave me reason when I could have chosen only blood. For a moment, her gaze softened. Rare and quiet, you have stood at my side, human, not as an envoy, not as an outsider, but as part of my trial, and together we passed it. Rian met her eyes, his voice firm despite his weariness. Then the throne is yours. Siren looked toward the dark horizon where the rebellion had fallen. Her voice was calm, but strong. The throne may be mine, but the future will be ours. The sun rose over the Kale Dominion, casting long shadows across the plains where the rebellion had fallen. The battlefield, now quiet, was filled with the sounds of rebuilding. Soldiers repaired walls, villagers cleared debris, and banners of silver and crimson waved proudly from the fortresses. Rian walked beside Princess Siren as they moved through the city. For the first time, he noticed the subtle changes among the people. Fear had not vanished, but there was a new respect in their eyes for her, for humanity, and for the bond between them. Siren's gaze swept over the city, sharp and precise. The battle is over, she said quietly, but the work has just begun. Victory is nothing without order, without trust. We must rebuild not only walls, but hearts. Rian nodded. And they will listen to you? They will, Siren said, firmly, not because they fear me, but because they saw my strength and my choice. At the central plaza, the Kale Council awaited them. The governors, generals, and city leaders had gathered in silence, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, it felt as though history itself held its breath. Siren stepped forward. Her robe shimmered in the morning light, and her silver-blue blade hung at her side. Beside her, Rian's presence reminded everyone that her trial had not been fought alone. I have returned, Siren began, her voice ringing across the plaza, not only as the heir to the Kale Dominion, but as a leader who listens, who acts. With both courage and reason, the rebellion is ended, and those who fought against our people have been given a choice: to stand with us or to leave. We will not kill where we can lead. We will not destroy where we can rebuild. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some whispered approval, others skepticism, but all listened. Rian stepped slightly forward. Though he had no title, no claim, his voice carried across the plaza. Humans are new to this galaxy. We do not bring centuries of rule or armies of power. What we bring is courage, loyalty, and the willingness to stand for what is right. If we can be trusted, we will walk beside you, not as conquerors, but as allies. The plaza fell silent again. Then a general, tall and scarred, stepped forward. Your words show wisdom, human, and your actions have proven your worth. Perhaps this trial is more than we understood. Siren's eyes flicked to Rian. A small nod, almost unnoticeable, passed between them, a recognition of what they had both achieved. The people of Kale, seeing their leaders bow and acknowledge the human, began to whisper and murmur. Some voices grew louder, echoing through the plaza. Siren leads with strength and mercy. The throne is hers. One by one, more voices joined. The chant spread like fire across the plaza. A roar of approval and loyalty. Siren lifted her blade slightly, not in threat, but in acknowledgement. "This is the Kale way," she said, "strength tempered with reason, courage balanced with mercy. And those who stand beside me, human or Kale, are part of our future." Ryun felt a surge of pride. Though he reminded himself he was not the one to claim victory, the honor belonged to Siren and her people. Yet he understood something he had not before. His courage, his willingness to act alongside her, had mattered. It had changed the outcome. That evening, the city celebrated. Fires burned in the streets. Music filled the air, and soldiers and citizens alike danced and sang. Siren moved quietly through the crowd, greeting her people, listening, observing. Beside her, Ryun followed, learning the rhythms of Kale life in ways no council meeting could teach. As the celebrations continued, Siren finally spoke to Ryun privately on the balcony of the high fortress. The stars stretched endlessly above them, bright and silent. "You passed your trial, human," she said, her eyes reflecting the distant light. "Not with a blade, but with courage, judgment, and loyalty. You are no longer just an envoy. You are part of Kale history." Ryun shook his head slightly, humbled. "I only did what I could. You chose me, and I followed. That was all." Siren smiled faintly, and that was enough. Sometimes the right choice is the one that seems smallest, but it changes everything. The night air was calm, carrying the scent of the sea and the fires from below. For Ryun, the journey had been beyond anything he had imagined. From a quiet envoy in the Galactic Council to standing beside a princess in battle, he had been tested in ways he never expected. Siren turned to look at the horizon, her expression steady, powerful, and serene. "The Kale Dominion has a new path," she said, "one that values courage, wisdom, and mercy, and humans will be part of it. If they choose. You, Ryun, have proven that we can trust each other. That is the beginning of a future we build together." Ryun nodded, finally understanding. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, challenges, and uncertainty, but with leaders like Siren, with courage, loyalty, and reason, humanity could not only survive, but thrive. The stars above twinkled quietly, bearing witness to a new era for Kale and human alike. And in that moment, Ryun knew one thing clearly: trials could shape destinies, but the choices one made define the future. Together, they had faced danger, rebellion, and doubt, and together, they had secured a throne and a legacy for generations to come.